Hello and welcome to today's video, and today I want to talk to you about Premiere Pro and how you can use it to increase your editing workflow. So these tips are going to be for Premiere Pro. There may be some crossovers that you can use in your own editing software, but my editing software of choice is Premiere Pro. So everybody has their own way of editing videos together, and I will show you the way I do mine, the way I lay out my files, how I organise them and how I put them on the timeline and how I edit them together. And hopefully some of the things that I do you'll be able to take away and use in your own videos, and it should speed up your workflow. So let's jump right in. The first tip I'm going to give you is organise your folders. When you first import everything off your memory cards, if you've got drone footage, camera footage, GoPro footage, photography stills, all those things, if you have them in one folder or in loads of different locations, it's going to be hard to import that into Premiere Pro as a project. What I do is I create a folder inside a specific folder. So I've got a folder where I have all my project files, but then each project I create a folder for. So in this instance, Boss Castle, when you go into that folder, you can see I've got 750D, got drone, photos, and soundtrack. Now you can have sound effects and GoPro, whatever folders you want. Create those folders inside one main folder. So my main folder in this instance is called Boss Castle, and then those folders are inside that. Bear in mind when you import, if it's an empty folder, Premiere Pro won't import it, I believe. So make sure you populate your folders before you import them. So we can jump into Premiere Pro. The main tip here to speed up your process is organization, and how we do that is we right click, we're going to click import, we're going to highlight the folder Boss Castle, and then here we're going to click import folder. And then what Premiere Pro is going to do is going to import that folder and every other folder that's inside that, including all the project files that you've got. So this will save you time organising, and so when you're looking for a file, for example, say you've got some drone footage and you've got 72 other files in that folder, you're going to spend ages looking for that drone footage, whereas if it's in a folder called drone footage, it's not going to take you as long to find. So now I have my main Boss Castle folder, then inside that I have the 4 folders that I created originally with all the sub files inside each folder. So soundtrack is in the soundtrack, all the photos that I've taken on the day, all my drone footage, and all my vlog footage. It's all organised. So that's the first tip, is to organise your folders before opening Premiere Pro. Okay, so the next tip to speed up your process would be how you drag it onto the timeline. So the way you can drag it onto the timeline, the first one, you can just drag your footage straight onto your timeline, like so, and then you can scrub through it and see where it is you want, and then cut it using your razor tool. Cut the clip that you want, clear the excess, like so. So now you have that specific part of the clip. The other way we can do that is we can double click it and it will go up into our source panel. Now from here we can scrub and find where we want our input and output. So we can click in and out. So now we have those 2 points as our timeline. Now to get that footage onto the timeline, we can drag the actual video file, which is here, onto the timeline, and that will give us the video onto the timeline. And then you can drag the audio separately onto the timeline if you wanted the audio. Or rather than doing that, just go to the main file and then just drag that onto the timeline, and that will only give you the highlighted bit that you've got with your input points and out points, but it will drag both the video and audio onto the timeline. So those are the ways that you can get your footage onto the timeline. The other way you can create footage, if you've got a little clip like this and you realise, oh actually that's quite good, but you don't want to remember it, you don't want to try and figure out where it was later on, and you want a way of remembering that footage, or you want a way of highlighting that footage and keeping it for later, you can right click and make a sub clip, and what that will do is it will make a separate clip of just this footage that you've got here, which you can then put into its own bin later on. So if you're scrubbing through and you find something and think, well, I need that but not now, you can make a sub clip of it and then store it for later on. Or alternatively, you can go through every single file that you've got, make subclips of everything, and then drag each individual thing onto the timeline. But that's a bit more of a lengthy process, and it's a bit of a time wasting process, I personally think. So this is the way I would do it. So I drag that clip onto here, and then I've got my clip on here. Okay, so the next tip I've got is learning shortcuts. Shortcuts are going to speed up your editing process, and I'll show you why. So let's say you're in your timeline and you're scrubbing through, you've got a lot of footage. Use your mouse wheel to scroll through the footage. So you've got this footage here, and you realise that this footage here was supposed to go at the end of your timeline. So now your timeline, you can scroll all the way to the end, which we know that most people won't do that. You can drag this little thing here, pull it all the way out till you get to the end of your timeline. Then you can drag that out, pop it on the end of your timeline, and then you can drag that back in to where you're editing. Alternatively, you can hold down Alt and you can scroll with your mouse wheel to different parts of your timeline, so it will stretch this out so you can see it. So that's another way of doing it. The other way is the backslash key. So when you're in your timeline, say you're here, and you need to get to the full view, rather than using the scroll wheel to get all the way out, you can hit the backslash key and it'll bring you right out and show you the entire timeline. And then when you need to get back in, hit the backslash key again and it'll bring you back into where you were zoomed into before. So if you were zoomed in all the way, backslash out, backslash back in. Or if you're only halfway out like that, backslash out, backslash back in. That is going to speed up your process dramatically. If you're a scroll wheel, if you scroll in and out of that timeline, or if you do use the little draggy thing, whatever it's called, if you use that, it's going to make it a little bit easier than trying to find that the little bit to grab onto. Even if you just take all these little things, you probably save yourself 20 minutes a day just trying to grab hold of those little pointy things. So the next shortcuts you're going to use are all on the bottom row, which these are the ones that I would suggest that you learn first, and then you can go on to use other shortcuts. But the main ones I would use is Z, X and C. So if you're on this, for example, and you're moving your project around, your next shortcut is going to be the Z key. So hit your Z key and it's going to take you back to the pointer where you can then select individual things again. And then let's say, for example, you want to cut a little bit more out of this footage. So instead of going over to the razor tool, you're going to go to X, and X is going to turn it into the little razor. Cut your footage, hit Z, go back to your thing. Now ripple delete, right click. Oh God, it's so small you can't find the space. So right clicking on a small thing to find ripple delete, and then ripple delete. Alternatively, just hit C and that will ripple delete. So just knowing those shortcuts, just those 3 to start with, or 4 to start with, will increase your speed in which you do things. Many times you've had like a shorter clip or a smaller clip and it keeps giving you this menu instead of the big long pop-up menu to get to that. This way you can just hit C on its own, no control, nothing, just hit C and it'll ripple delete your footage. Now if you want to carry on learning shortcuts, which is always a really good thing in Premiere Pro, there's a lot of shortcuts. You can click on edit and then down under the bottom, or alternatively the shortcut is Control Alt and K. It will bring up the shortcuts that are currently there, and you can rearrange those to anything you want. So if you wanted a custom set of shortcut, you can have the num lock as the selection key. If you're right-handed and you use your mouse with the left hand, because I use my mouse with my right hand, so if you move the mouse with the left hand, you could have your num locks, your numbers as all the different cuts and whatever it is you use the most to edit your files. Having those and remembering them will speed up how quick you edit your videos. Okay, so the next tip will be using your favorites, or using custom bins within your effects tabs. So we all use dip to black, for example, or cross dissolves, or whatever you're using for your effects. Whether you're increasing or decreasing the decibels of an audio clip, you have to go into your effects panel and you have to search for those effects each time. So what my tip would be is down the bottom you see a little folder, and you can click create a new custom bin. Now you can do this with as many deep folders as you want. I've just got the one folder, which is favorites. If I click that, all the stuff I use on a regular basis I've dropped into the favorites folder, and now whenever I'm editing a video, my most used effects are here for me to grab. Again, like I say, you can create multiple folders and have just audio effects in one, but then you're almost creating more bins for you to use again, and it sort of convolutes it a little bit more. So I just use the main ones I use. So like a warp stabilizer on a clip, I know it's in the favorites. So rather than me having to find the subfolder that it's in and then drag that onto my timeline, I can just literally bring my favorites down, drag it straight onto my timeline. So how you use it is it's really easy. Okay, so let's say you want your camera blur as one of your favorites. Drag the camera blur down to your favorites bin and let go. Now in your favorites bin you've got camera blur. I don't want that in there, so I'm going to get rid of it. So that way you can access your most used effects. So my next tip, which is going to be for videographers that do photography videos, and it's going to be a similar thing as favorites, but I'm going to show you quickly how to do it. So when you edit your vlog together, you're going to have a photo that you're going to show. So we're going to show this photo. So the way a lot of us would do it is, timeline in a little bit. So the way a lot of us would do it is, we'll set that to frame size. We'd start off with the effects controls up here on the left, and then we do like a slow zoom or a slow fade out, or however you create your effect. So the way you do it is each time you get a photo, you're going to go to the start of the photo, you're going to create a position and a scale keyframe, and then you're going to move to somewhere in the photo, say three quarters of the photo in, or fully in, however you want to do it, and then you're going to create another keyframe, and those keyframes are going to be your movement. So your first keyframe's up here, gives you this one, and then when you get down here, this is going to be where you moved your size and scale. So say for example you wanted it zoomed in. So now when you play it back, you've got to zoom in to a certain area. So that's the way most of us would do it. The way the shortcut that I'm going to give you is going to make this 10 times easier when you're editing your vlogs, because you're going to create a preset that you can just drag and drop onto your photos. So all you have to do is under where the heading of the actual part you're using, so motion in this example, you're going to right click on it and you're going to click save preset. You're going to change the name of that motion preset to whatever it is you want. So in this case it was a zoom in, so we're going to call it zoom in, and then we're going to call it it was landscape. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click OK. Now, so it's under our presets, so we can drag that down to our favorites, and now in our favorites, get rid of that. In our favorites we've got zoom in landscape. So the next time we drag a photo that's landscape into our timeline, so we go back to here, press spacebar, nothing's happening because nothing's happening, drag the zoom in landscape onto that, go back to the beginning of the clip, and now we've got that zoom in landscape on that photo. So every time you do that, you now no longer have to create key points, do the zoom, pull it back, all that rubbish that you have to do with it. And then you just do exactly the same thing for portrait and any other types of movement you want. So if there's different types of movement for different photos, you can just create presets for each one. These I would suggest, if you created more than one or two, then chuck them in their own folder to make them easier to find. But yeah, so that's one thing that as a photographer, and you want to show off those photos, that's one thing that's going to really improve the speed in which you edit your videos together. Okay, so the next tip is going to be related to your audio. Now this is how you edit your audio on your timeline. So you can go on to wherever you get your audio from, download 3 or 4 tracks to fill up your, say for example your video is 10 minutes long, put 3 or 4 different tracks on your audio over your video. And obviously this is preference on how you edit your videos or how you like your videos. You might want 3 or 4 tracks on there. So this may not be relevant to you, but if you don't want 3 or 4 tracks, you don't want to be searching for 3 hours, 4 hours looking for 3 or 4 tracks, find a good track that you like, drag that onto your timeline like so. Now where your clips run out, so say for example let's say for example your clips are longer than your actual soundtrack, so drag out there quickly. So say your clips are longer than your soundtrack and your soundtrack runs out here and you want the music to carry on all the way up through here. So here, it's horrible noise, let's mute that. So you want your audio to be from here. Okay, so what I would recommend doing is finding the place, scrub to the place that you want to extend the clip, and then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your razor tool and then just cut there, and then you're going to change back to your pointer, hold down Alt, change back to your pointer I said, hold down Alt, and then drag that clip to the end, or to sort of the end. So drag that clip to here. You see where it's still high in the timeline. If I can even make that bigger. So you see where the music's still high. Drag that over the high bit like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab here. You're going to grab a constant power. Drag it onto your clip. So now when you play that through, you're not even going to notice. Just play that again. So when you play that through, you're not even going to notice the join. But what you have now is you have a longer audio clip that's the same clip all the way through your film. So, and again, you can just keep dragging that out. You can just keep making it longer and longer and longer. Obviously you want to make the join at a long part of the audio. You don't want a short part, because it's going to repeat really badly over that, and then you're going to really hear that. So the longer the duration of the clip before you repeat it, the better. So again, constant power on there, drop it on there, play that through. Okay, and it's quite simple, and it works with, if you get like a lower bit like this for example, and a higher bit like that. So you got like a really high bit and a really low bit. So we're going to go constant gain, drag that on, and then play that through. And that's going to sound absolutely fine. Anybody that's listening that doesn't know the cuts there, that is not going to notice that's a cut. So that's another tip, and that tip's not relating to how you edit, but more of how long you spend looking for audio. This can just make your audio process a lot easier. You're trying to find 3, 4, 5 songs to play through your entire duration. Yeah, so there you go. So that's how I edit my vlogs in a really short way of doing it, but that just shows you the way I use my shortcuts and how I put my music together, and hopefully you can sort of apply some of that to the way you edit yours, and it will speed up your process and hopefully make your editing a bit more easier to do. So hopefully you found that video useful, and please do give me a thumbs up if you liked it. It does help with the algorithm, helps YouTube promote my video further, and if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next one.